All right, greetings, everybody. Welcome to the School of Orisha Studies. Today is Thursday. It is September 26th, and the year is 2024. And on this day, we are going to dive into our second phase of dream incubation for the Holy Odu Irete Osa. And I don't, you probably can't hear it, but if you're somewhere in the Southeast, you are experiencing it outside your own window, which is rainfall. And the rain has been falling like nonstop for 10, 11 hours now. And it's kind of cool, because Irete Osa is about rain. Irete Osa is about rain. You see my mother there in the background, and the I don't think it's one of the verses that we've ever featured of Arotesa, but it's Arotesa got himself into trouble. That's another verse I don't think we've referenced, but he got himself into all trouble. His mouth wrote checks that his behind couldn't cash, and it was his mother who made it rain. And so that's another one of the reasons why we gather rainfall during when you see Irete Osa, because the rainfall is gonna, it represents your heavenly blessings from your mother, particularly if your mother is of blessed memory, as mine is. And so the rainfall is a good thing by my estimation. I prefer to be in Nigeria during the rainy season for that reason. And all that to say that it's raining heavily, as Ifa said it would. It's just nice to have that another layer of affirmation of the word of Ifa being a real thing, not being an abstract thing, not being a conceptual thing. That when Ifa speaks, it's addressing where we are and what we're experiencing in the moment. And the realism of Ifa is what drives our practice overall here in the school. Depending on how long you've been here or how long you've been following my work, I am a firm believer in all of the magic. I am a firm believer because I've seen it and I've experienced it, but I don't agree with the hocus pocus, aspect that a lot of folks seem to be dealing in, because it's exploitative, behind all these veils of mysticism and esotericism and obscure language and saying things that nobody can explain. I've seen how that has become woven into our tradition, and I've been around just long enough to see when those elements were really heavily inserted. And I can name the names, but I don't do so because that's just tacky. But I know the folks who are highly responsible for, inserting a lot of flammery into our practice. And I just don't agree with it. I just don't agree with it. Ifa is real. Ifa is real. Ifa is very practical. Ifa is very tangible. It isn't materialistic. That's another aspect of it where we can lean into spiritual materialism, and we're thinking that if I give this goat, then I'm gonna get this Benz. That's what prompts some of the folks to, one of the most notorious stories is of the cat down in Brazil who drove, I think it's a Mercedes Benz, drove a Benz into the ocean as an offering to Yemoja. There ain't no Odu that says Yemoja want a Benz. And if she did, then she would tell you to take it to, Maricela. Maricela, the Candomblé priestess, is the one who needs the Benz. Don't be driving no Benz into the ocean. The ocean don't need a Benz. But that kind of spiritual materialism can take us to some real extremes. And so that's also something that we have to be very cautious of, because the tradition If you're not careful and you're not really, really focused on realism, you can easily get sucked into a lot of fantasy world. And fantasy world in the sense that you're like you're like a dope fiend chasing a high. You're after something that's always going to be just beyond reach. And that's not what our ancestors have sacrificed for. So that being said, I love Thursday night, and if you listen to the playbacks back to back to back to back, probably every fifth Thursday night, I say that I love Thursday night. I love this particular class because it faces some of the most esoteric and abstract aspects of the tradition, but in a very practical way, right? Because I know that the esoteric dimensions of the practice are real, but there aren't a lot of opportunities for you to get, practical steps into that. And one of the most important things in that regard is not even the steps themselves, but being cognizant of what we're trying to accomplish. Okay. Overall, if you're talking about divination, sacrifice, akoshe, dreams, trance, possession, there is really one goal. And that goal is to create holism, to make you into a whole person. Okay. Now, you'll hear the term Omoluwabi thrown around, right? Omoluwabi is a real thing, and it's a valuable ideal for us to focus on. Omoluwabi is the ideal person. And I like the way Chief Popola has defined it as Omoluwabi is the whole person, the complete person. I really like that. Omoluwabi is the complete person. And that's what all Yoruba people aspire to. You talk to a Yoruba Muslim, a Yoruba Christian, Isheshe devotee, everyone is going to agree. Omoluwabi is the pinnacle. All roads point to Omoluwabi. What does it mean to be a complete person? All right. If that's the goal, that from antiquity, that is built into the indigenous knowledge system, right? It's not something that's Christian. It's not something that's Muslim. It's not something that's exclusively Isheshe. This is something that all Yoruba people recognize as part of their ethos. To be Omoluwabi, a complete person, a whole person. A whole person, when we look at our experience here in the West, when we talk about being a whole person, this is a concept that I was introduced to. I'm not sure where I was, but it's on one of the legs of the journey that I was on, but it was something psychological. And the nature of the discussion was addressing the experience of fragmentation. Many people in the United States suffer from what they call fragmentation. Fragmentation is where there are these gaps that separate your head from your heart, your thinking from your feeling. There's this gap, where your thinking and your feeling just don't resonate with one another. And then another gap is between your feeling and your doing. So your head, your heart, and your body, your thinking, your feeling, and your doing. Those are three major blocks where people experience fragmentation. I'm thinking one thing, but I'm feeling something different. I'm feeling something, but I'm doing something else. I'm doing one thing and I'm thinking another thing. And so, there's all these gaps between how we think, how we feel, and what we do. And that's expressed as fragmentation, right? The opposite of fragmentation is integrity, right? Now, just like Iwa, if you talk to people about Iwa, most people are going to lean first into Iwa as morality and virtue. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it skews your perception and will also make it difficult for you to pursue Iwa in a very practical way. And I want it to be practical. Integrity is the same way. We talk about integrity. Oh, this person has integrity. That means they're truthful, means they're honest, it means they're sincere, right? But in a very simple way, we look at it kind of from the physical sciences or engineering or something like that. Integrity just means whole. When something it has integrity, it's complete. It hasn't been compromised, right? So integrity, having integrity, sure, we can look at it as being honest and being sincere and being virtuous and all that. Great. If that's what floats your boat, go with it. But I want to also have you entertain the idea that integrity means being whole. Being whole meaning that your thinking, your feeling, and your doing are all in alignment. They're all in agreement. There's no conflict between how you think, how you feel, and what you do. You are operating in integrity, right? And so one of the things that I know from my practice is that I have experienced fragmentation. I've experienced it. And I know what it feels like to have this tension, these internal contradictions, and how it shows up in my body or how it would show up in my body. Different places where I would be experiencing tension, different places where I would have made agreements and gotten involved in activities that were totally contradictory to what I really believed, how I felt, and what I really wanted to be about. I was not operating with integrity, right? And it didn't necessarily make me a dishonest person. It didn't necessarily make me a dubious person. It didn't necessarily make me a wicked person, right? It just meant that I was operating my contradictions, my internal contradictions were interfering with my ability to do things that were congruent with who I really wanted to be in the world. And I want you to entertain that as a way to take it out of the moralistic, judgmental condemnation, right? Because that part of it. Well, the reason why this is essential is because we in the West, in our Christian experience, we want to be holy, right? We want to be good, and we can't be holy. We can't be good. We have feelings. We have these thoughts. We have these inclinations. We do stuff, right? And so because we know ourselves, if no one else knows, we know that we will sinning. So the next best thing, since we know we can never really be good, well, we can make you look bad. If I can't be good, I can at least make you look bad. And if I'm really bad and I don't want you to know, then I have that much more impetus to project all of my wickedness onto you. And people aren't conscious of this. This is in psychological terms, this develops from the very beginning of life. You have your persona. Your persona is the thing you want to project out into the world. This is how you want people to see you. Has nothing to do with your real integrity. It's just what you need for people to see and respond to in order to like you and get along with you and you to get along with them. But as soon as you start developing your persona and you project this mask out into the world, at the exact same rate that you are able to successfully project a persona of who you want people to see you as, you're also developing your shadow. They go hand in hand. The brighter your persona, the darker your shadow. They're two sides of the coin. They're inseparable from one another. So that's something for us to contemplate within ourselves. The more completely you're able to project an image of yourself into the world, likewise, there is a shadow. There's a whole nother persona in the shadows that no one else sees but you. And even as a matter of fact, you yourself can lose track. you will lose track of your shadow. And so you'll have to take the light of your consciousness and then project that light onto your shadow so you can get a full look at what's in the basement. You get a full look at what's in the attic, right? And as you're able to see the persona that you project out into the world as clearly as you can see the shadow that's behind that persona, that represents this idea of wholeness. Now you at least have the opportunity to choose your light and your shadow freely and comfortably, because you're not in denial about how you are. You're not in denial. You're not pretending that you don't have those thoughts. You're not suppressing those feelings. You're fully aware of them, and you're able to choose them deliberately and purposefully in order to accomplish a even bigger goal. Now, the real wholeness doesn't just come from integrating your light and your shadow. The real wholeness comes from your ability to become what in Jungian terms is individuation. So I would suggest, and this is just my own, framework, that when we talk about Omoluwabi, what we're talking about is someone who has been fully individuated. This is someone who is whole. This is someone who has full access to the 365 degrees of their potential. And they can go from conceptualization to actualization. And one of the ways that you know that you are getting closer and closer to that is that you're not suffering from this fragmentation, where your thinking, your feeling, and your doing become more and more and more congruent. This is why our dreams are so important, because our dreams are coming from an aspect of our consciousness that we don't have control over. When we talk about the persona and the shadow, the persona is under your control. You're deliberate about what you say, you're deliberate about what you wear, you're deliberate about the perfume you wear, the car you drive, where you live. All those are things that you can control. But the aspects of your shadow these are things that are just cropping up. They're a part of you, and they just keep cropping up. And no matter what you do to deny them, ignore them, they just keep showing up one way or the other. And the more you deny them, the more, urgently they will show up. Right? So when we think about, or when we acknowledge what's happening in our dreams are where our unconscious mind is saying, I know you don't want to deal with this. I know you don't want to acknowledge this. I know you don't want to feel this. I know you don't want to address this. You don't want to go into this. However, this is what we're going to do today. And so your unconscious mind will start feeding you these symbols. And these symbols will be attached to certain kinds of thoughts and emotions. And as you grapple with those thoughts and emotions on whatever level that you're capable of, that's what starts to help you to integrate these hidden motivations, thoughts, feelings, etc. And little by little, they create more harmony and balance between your thinking, feeling, and doing. So our goal through this aspect of the practice is to facilitate wholeness, which is characterized by harmony between your thinking, feeling, and doing. Okay? So I present this to you on this day so that you can, even within yourself, start to envision. Number one, how often am I aware of the discrepancies between how I think, how I feel, and what I do? I had this conversation, I saw this meme, I watched this video, I went to work, and somehow I just was just so uncomfortable. To what degree was my discomfort a reflection of the incongruence between my thinking, feeling, and doing? That's one level of inquiry that you can engage in on your own. But then more importantly, what I want you to start to consider is, what would it be like? What would my experience of life be like if my thinking, feeling, and doing were all in alignment? Can I recall a time in my life where I was whole and my thinking, feeling, and doing were all harmonious? They were all in alignment. There was no contradiction between thinking, feeling, and doing. Can you recall a time in your life where you were experiencing that? Can you imagine what it will be like to be totally congruent between your thinking, feeling, and doing? Okay. Because that's the experience part. That's the feeling part. That's the part that only you will know. I can do the sacrifice for you. I can make the accouché for you. I can prescribe the ebos for you. All that can be done. But ultimately, it's only you who will know the efficacy of those medicines, of those charms, of that sacrifice. Only you will be able to tell when you're really, truly getting better. And you're really, really coming back to the full, whole, integral aspect or version of yourself. Only you will know that. And when you get a glimpse of it, you may know it for an hour. You may know it for a day, right? You may know it for a whole month. But whatever it is, I want you to really zero in on it, recognize it, claim it, define it, and remember, this is what it's like when I am operating in total integrity. All right. So that's the goal. That's the goal for Thursday night. Embody integrity.